What's up, everybody? Crash here. Back to talk about some more Game of Thrones. This is the Stark Side where we talk about Game of Thrones, Star Wars, and Marvel. I've been away for a little bit. I'll explain that real quick. I got a job. Uh, Hold your applause. I got a job where I was on the marketing team as an assistant manager for a home improvement company. They sold windows, roofing, siding, doors, gutters, trim, all that outside stuff. So, what I didn't know going into it that I convinced myself I was cool with was it was a canvassing company. So we were knocking on doors. But they told me they promoted from within. So I gave it a shot. They did not promote from within. So now I'm back, right? Got a new thing going where learning Python so we can get into this AI developer industry here, which everybody's getting into. But I'll just be another programmer slash AI developer. But that's what I'm into now. But that does leave me to be working from home, which leaves me with more time to be talking to you guys. So finish my work for the day. Watch the show again, and now I have some thoughts about the first three episodes and where we're at and where we're going. Because um, anybody who's making these videos, for one, I'm assuming that you've read the books. I'm assuming that you've read all the books and you know where this is going. Otherwise, you're giving your opinion on things that could or could not be wrong. For one, and if you just want to be surprised like everybody else who hasn't watched the books and you're just watching the show for the first time, that's cool. I don't fault you for that. But these books have almost been out since the 90s for most of them. So if I've gotten to them by now, it's time for you to get to them. That's how popular they are. And Yeah, I have thoughts on book versus show and where they're going and where they're going to end the show, because that's my biggest. Nobody's talking about where they're going to end the show. Nobody knows where they're going to end the show, but that's my biggest concern is they're going to end the show too soon, because there's a lot that goes on after the Dance of the Dragons that's not necessarily included in the Dance of the Dragons. That's still important for the result of the Dance of the Dragons. Um, so that's sort of where I'm looking towards as we're at season three, halfway through a 4 season show. Um, that's where I'm looking to, is where are they going to end it, knowing how the story ends. Knowing how the story ends, where are they going to end it for the show? Because there's so much that goes on. We could do a whole nother show, a whole nother 2 shows between House of the Dragon and A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. So that's just what I want to get across here. There's a lot going on here. And, I've created a lot of material to talk about it and explain it. So once again, I'm Crash Landon. First one I want to talk about is the timeline. The Westeros timeline. There's a lot going on. What I've made is this timeline here. And it itself, let me see if I can move it a little bit. So it itself starts right at the Doom of Old Valyria. And then it goes through the Dance of the Dragons and all the way down to Robert's Rebellion. So all the books kind of go through that. I've made a timeline to talk about all the major events and who was king at those points in time. And then, for shits and giggles, I also made a House of the Dragon timeline, which is a little more detailed for what we're talking about. So we make that a little bigger. Let's see if we can talk about this a little bit. So So at Rook's Rest around here, Battle of the Gullet is 130 AC here. So see if I can make this any bigger before we get going. Okay. So as you can see, it's pretty detailed with the major events here. I got the Battle of the Gullet. I got the death of Viserys. I got Daeron the Daring winning at Honeywine. But I feel like the show has skipped that already, right? So we skipped Honeywine. I feel like we might have skipped the first battle of Tumbleton. We definitely skipped Bitterbridge because there's no Maelor. So the treason at Tumbleton. That's actually the first battle of Tumbleton. So I don't think we're going to skip that. Right? We haven't gotten there yet. That's going to be set up for maybe next episode with all the Hugh Hammer stuff. Right? I feel like for the most part, with the show itself, people are making videos and talking about all the changes and everything from the show to the book. And that's really not the biggest issue for me, right? Adaptations have to kind of change certain things to get their point across on screen versus on the page. And I'm not opposed to making changes for adaptation's sake, right? But we got to remember that George R.R. Martin has been a part of each of these shows at least heavily in the first season, right? And before. So getting the show off the ground, getting the adaptation going, working with the director and the showrunner to make sure that the visions align and all of that stuff. So Ryan Condal has been on record saying that he has gone to George in some sort of way with all of these changes, right? Whether he got back to him before he made the change or not, or whether he just left a message, like that's what's up in the air. But he said that he reached out to George for every change that he made. And now we're in season 3, and now is when the changes are really starting to matter. All right. So certain changes like Alicent and Rhaenyra having all these meetings together. That's not a terrible change to me because this show is written from a book that is written from 3 different perspectives. It's like 2 maesters and a jester. And they weren't always in the company of everybody they're talking about. There's a lot of times that Maester Orwyle is talking about something and he was actually in a dungeon or in a penthouse locked up writing his confession / Dance of the Dragon story. So he wasn't out in the field watching any of these battles or anything. His was a secondhand account or what he heard. Septon Eustace, or I think it was Septon Eustace, his account was written from the Red Keep. So anything that was happening on Dragonstone or anything that was happening outside of the Red Keep, he wasn't quite sure about if he wasn't in the room for it, right? So it was all secondhand account from him. And Mushroom was with Rhaenyra on Dragonstone, and then in the Red Keep with her, and then a bunch of other places. So, well, a bunch is probably strong, but he was in Rhaenyra's company. So his account is the more salacious account and written from Rhaenyra's perspective per se. So any liberties that the show takes, they have 3 different accounts of which way they want to go to make it a canon truth for the show. So we can't really pick apart the show and book differences with House of the Dragon. It's easier to pick it apart with Game of Thrones and A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms because those were narratives written from the perspective of most of the stars of the shows. So once they do something different that wasn't in the book, yeah, that's obvious. And if it messes up things, then we're usually on it, right? But this is the show that I'm like, we got to give it some grace because we are making our own assumptions of what actually happened based on three different accounts when we read the book. And then when we see the show, we're making up our own assumptions on what they should put on screen based on three different accounts that they interpreted a certain way, right? That's all I'm saying. So, some of the biggest changes, like leaving out Baylor, I understand from the perspective of it's another kid on a movie set where there's a lot of dangerous stuff going on, and if they're just going to kill him when he's still a kid anyway, what does he really matter for the casting? And at this point, they've already given Sir Rick Arthorne other stuff to do. So it's not going to end the same way there. Some of the age changes probably led to him changing the makeup of the dragons from the Battle of the Gullet. And I think Bela is supposed to be like 14 in the show. Right? Her and Rhaena are supposed to be like 14 in the show. Jace is about that, also maybe 15, 16. But since she and Jace look about the same age, their dragons are both rideable. In the book, I don't think Bela's dragon is even rideable yet. So, but in the show, since they're both rideable, and it would hit harder if they're in the field together and one of them goes down, I think that's kind of why they put him there. And then having Rhaena already being the one that's riding Sheep Stealer, makes sense for her to help out, since Sheep Stealer was in the Ballad of Gullet. And then the other three dragon riders to be at or around the God's Eye waiting for Aemon. It's not really a big change, especially since they didn't do anything, And then they end up in the cleanup battle for the Ballad of Gullet anyway. So in the history of things, when people are recounting things, they still saw Vermithor, Sea Smoke, and Silverwing at the Ballad of the Gullet at some point. So that's kind of how the book shakes out for me, is as long as there's some reason or way that people kind of see these things, like the biggest change for me is the fact that the Valerians in general are black. Nobody wants to talk about that. Or I didn't really hear anybody talk about that in season 1 like I thought they would. Because what that changes, for me, is a number of Targaryens who should probably be mixed by the time that the actual show comes about. Or at least a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. So, just certain things but that's important personally, not for the show, right? Like I immediately went there. It was like, well, the Valerians should probably be darker, in 286 AC, but the fact that the Valerian house is not necessarily extinct, but very, very low status by the time the original series comes around, is probably the reason that they were able to kind of do it and get away with it. Nobody remembers the Valerians from the original show, so all the lore that we get is stuff that not was made up, but came from books that weren't the 6 books in the original series, right? So the Valerians weren't mentioned that much. They were with Stannis when the show and the book started, but we didn't really see them on screen. So they could have been black, but at that point, they were probably just darker in general. But I wasn't worried about it. I'm probably going to be Corlys Velaryon at a Comic-Con coming up, so I'm not that worried about it. I just feel like that was a big change for the books that nobody talked about, and then they went crazy when Maelor wasn't there, or Nettles ended up being Rhaena. I recently saw a video say that the prophecy of Ice and Fire was made up specifically for this show. And I used to think that there might have been some reference to a prophecy in the original series of books, but I can't be sure it was the same one at this point. I don't think Dany would have heard it. The last person that we saw Here it was Jace, and we know that he died before he was able to tell anybody about it or pass it on. So it wasn't in a book, it was just secretly on that dagger. So the Mad King wouldn't have known, it wouldn't have told a young Viserys about it at 3 or 4 years old, or whenever he left Dragonstone to go to Essos. So I think actually the prophecy dies at the end of the show for reasons that book fans understand, and the show fans will see in about 2 years or so. So maybe there wasn't a prophecy in the books as I talk it out, but the entire universe gets a little extra depth to why the Targaryens feel inherently righteous to be the ones on the Iron Throne at all times, but that's only while they had dragons. When they didn't have dragons anymore, the magic and the allure left for everybody. Like, they were only on the Iron Throne for superficial reasons, thinking that was their heritage and birthright, and other people didn't care that the Targaryens existed on the Iron Throne and were ready for a change. So that's kind of where we are by Night of the Seven Kingdoms, but that's kind of as far as I go for the changes and everything like that. Now, saying all that to say this, there's a lot of changes that are going on in this current season, so I kind of get where everybody is going with it, per se. So looking at it here, we got Daemon meeting up with Ormond Hightower and taking what he thinks is Daeron Targaryen with him. He should have really known that not that wasn't Daeron. He hasn't met Daeron, but he should have known something was up when the dragon didn't make any movements, when his person just was walking away from him. Like, he knows how Caraxes would have been if he left the scene and just left him with some random people. Caraxes would have probably flew after him, right? So that should have been the first thing, but that's just writing to progress the story. So not mad about it. What I am mad about is, all right, so we're not going to see Britta Bridge. Aemon going on a burning spree. That might have been just what we got for Harrenhal, because now Aemon is injured, so he has to heal before he has his fight with Daemon. So I feel like there is a good chance that Aemon is going to have the same arc that Daemon had in season 2, where him and Ellis Rivers are just holed up at Harrenhal, living their life, and this time, spoiler alert, Alice Rivers is going to end up pregnant. So, we'll see how that goes. So, Treason at Tumbleton. I think that's coming with the next episode. They're trying to work in a way that Hugh Hammer kind of defects naturally, and he doesn't. He's not the same as Ulf, where he wants a castle just for the sake of having a castle because he has a dragon. He's going to get this feeling naturally, and they're including his wife in a lot of the promos. So I feel like it's going to have something to do with her, you know. I got the show on right now on mute, so I'm kind of watching it so I can make my extra points. Rhaenyra feeling like there's a lot of ghosts in there is a good point. That's where everybody died. She had her dad die, her mom die. Of course, her unborn, recently born little brother died there too. We know everybody dies in that throne room, decapitated and whatnot. She just killed Otto Hightower in it, and Ironwood. So those were book accurate deaths for sure. Yeah, the whole Daeron Targaryen thing was, I mean, we don't know. We don't know. I guess we would know if this was made up or in the book. So I could say that this wasn't in the book for sure, but it's a thing where it'll set up how good at strategy Ormond Hightower is, right? He knew that Daemon asking to meet with them would lead to them having to surrender, and more than likely, since they had a dragon, needing to take the dragon rider, right? So just in case, he had Bold John Roxton ready with a nod to go grab a different kid. I think it's kind of genius. Because all he needed was time. All he needed time was to get to Tumbleton, with Daemon thinking that they had surrendered, and had time to kind of get in the trenches and enact their plan in the books. So, assuming we're getting both Tumbletons, in the books, there were people from Ormond Hightower's army who ran ahead to come into Tumbleton, right? Under, oh my God, the army's coming, I need somewhere to hide. And by the time the army got there and the dragons were overhead, all the chaos started. Off-White and Hugh Hammer turned to the other side, and the people inside, who were actually in Ormond Hightower's army, turned on people inside, right? So while everybody's scared of the dragons up top, shit is going down inside too, and nobody knows who to trust or where to turn. So that's how the doors get open. They storm the city, and now in the show, it looks like they try to stash there in those narrow-ass streets so Rhaenyra can't storm it or burn them down without killing innocent people. So, decent strategy, but she's, in my opinion, she's about to be crazy. So, I think that once all this stuff keeps going down, and we're at episode 3 of 8, so next one will be 4. We'll be halfway through the season. This battle above the guy's eye, hold on, right here, is going to, that has to be in season 4. Now, being that, we'll call this a spoiler section, I think they want to save that to season 4, because I think Matt Smith is going to be employed with this show that long. Some of this other stuff you got to push back. So I feel like Tumbleton, all the shit that's going to happen at Tumbleton is going to kind of be the rest of the season. Season might end with, it started with Rhaenyra taking the city. In episode 2, and I think it might end with her leaving the city. Between episodes 4 and 8, we're going to see Adam Valerian flee the dragon pit, try to prove his worth after the dragon seeds Turncloak at Tumbleton. We're going to see the Shepherd introduced. We're going to see Lord Corlys in a dungeon. That might happen next episode. And I feel like everything else, I think Daemon might find Rhaena in the next episode or 2, because he was supposed to go to the Vale. So we'll see what they do with her and Nettles' storyline going forward with Daemon, her dad now, right? It wasn't her dad in the book, but it's her dad now, so we'll see what they do. But yeah, I think everything else will be at the beginning of season 4. So that means the Battle of God's Eye, Helena committing suicide, maybe the end of the actual dragon seeds at that point. and all that. Yeah. So I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the show from the point of they're filling in the gaps from what George R. R. Martin intentionally left in his book. They're not making up stuff to make up stuff. They're trying to give us a cohesive canon storyline that works with the rest of this franchise, rather than just the history book that George R. R. Martin gave us that would have been weird to stick to verbatim and not have to make up stuff in between. You know, the actual stuff that Allison has to do in these last 2 seasons in the book is really nothing. She really just exists in the Red Keep. They have to keep her under lock and key because of what she keeps telling her granddaughter at some point. You know, like she's really doing nothing to add to the story. So they made up stuff. They made up stuff for her to do. They made up meetings for her and Rhaenyra to go to, so they can be the important people in the show. So I'm not mad at that part of it, but that's how I know that none of the bad stuff that happens to them will happen until season 4. So they're still going to draw this season out, right? We got the most exciting things that I think are going to happen in this season in the very beginning. So if season 2 wasn't going to be boring, season 3 was going to be boring. And not to say that season 3 has been boring, because we got the Battle of the Gullet and we got her storming King's Landing, but that was supposed to come in season 2. So if we didn't get that, if we got that in season 2, we didn't get it in season 3, what were they going to give us in season 3? I guess they would have found a couple battles to make happen. But we still also need the Butcher's Ball for Christian Cole. So that has to be somewhere. So Christian Cole, Tumbleton, and the Adam Valerian and Corliss situation. That's the rest of the season. That's pretty much it. So we'll see what the Dragon Seeds end up doing. But other than that, man, I don't know. I think most of the stuff is going to be saved for season 4. So I think we got the money shot early in this one. So we'll see how the rest of the season goes. Yeah, but those are my thoughts. So like I said, I'm going to do some more videos as some more stuff comes up. I know Spider-Man is coming. X-Men is out. And Starfighter is on the way. Mando Grogu was good. I just I feel like it's the start of something. So it's not like you can really judge it based on what it added to the story. You know, I feel like it's the start of something, not necessarily a standalone movie. So waiting to see what's next. But other than that, I think that's it for me. X-Men is coming out tonight. I'm going to watch that. And I might have some thoughts on that. But other than that, I'll see y'all soon. Finish this. It's been Crash After Dark. That's what we're going to call it. So stay tuned for more. Like I said, I'm going to edit this in the morning. Might put some fire in my hand or something like that. Since we're talking about Game of Thrones, I'm a Targaryen, and I'll add some fires in my hands, so it's super exciting. But you gotta stay to watch it. So talk to you soon.